Hi, this video is to show you a lot of different tasks and setup you can do with our virtual machines so you can dive right into classes. Um, to start with, make sure you're logged in as under your student username. In the upper right corner, you can see I'm logged in as a student. Once you're logged in, that means you can go to ktbyte.com/VM and press enter. It'll automatically fill in your username and password. You don't need to memorize your username and password for the virtual machine, only for the main website. It should automatically fill that in. Once we're logged in, we see that we're on the desktop area on Windows. Macs have a desktop area as well. We also see that we have a taskbar down at the bottom. This is similar to the Mac dock. We can put shortcuts to different programs here and I'll show what we have open. We can also look at the start menu, which is in the lower left corner here, which has a lot of different options. Now, one thing is I actually opened this in a pretty small window, so if you want to resize that, you should. And a good idea would be to make this nearly as big as the screen. Now, if you're taking a KTbyte class, you want to leave a little bit of room because you'll also have your GoToMeeting window open with important controls like your microphone and webcam controls. So you see I left a little sliver of space on the right side so that I could have access to that if I had GoToMeeting open on the side there. Now, I did resize my window, but my desktop icons just got bigger. I didn't really get more space here. If I opened a folder, it'd be kind of a clunky folder, filling a lot of space, but not really giving me too much room to work with. So if I really want to make full use of the space, I should refresh the web page like this. Click the refresh button. It re-logs me in, and this time it resizes the desktop area to actually make use of all the space. Now if I open this folder, it doesn't take up so much relative room on the desktop and have more room for other things. This is the apps folder. You saw I opened this from a shortcut on the desktop. This has a lot of useful programs and applications for KTbyte classes. A couple of really important ones we want to know about. The pad and pad 2 links are here. Those are shortcuts to our online notepad in a web browser. And you can see I've actually already copied one of these to my desktop. What if I was in pad 2 or in a class that used pad 2? Oh, we could click on this and then right click and drag to copy this to the desktop. I could also just create a shortcut here. We are copying a shortcut to a web page. And now I've got a shortcut here. I don't need to go to the apps folder to open that up every time. So I could open the pad or pad 2. Notice this opens in Microsoft Edge though. This is actually a little slow and has some compatibility issues. So what I really want to do is close down Edge and open this in Chrome instead. So what I need to do is make Chrome my default browser in the virtual machine. I'm going to go to the Chrome folder here. You might also have a shortcut to it. I'm going to go to the Chrome folder. If you want, you could actually pin this to the taskbar. A couple ways to do that. I could drag the icon to the taskbar. I could also click on the icon, right-click on it, and choose Pin to Taskbar. And you see I get a little shortcut to it here. So that's great, but my pad icons are still opening in Microsoft Edge. So I should click Open Up Chrome and set Chrome as the default browser. We got a nice big button for it here. When we do that, it's not going to do it automatically. You have to go to your system settings, and you see how we have the web browser area at the bottom. It says Microsoft Edge. We'll click that, switch to Chromium. Chromium is a version of Google Chrome. Now all our internet links will open in Chromium. Instead, we can close this control panel. We can even close Chromium itself, and we can see my icons have changed for my two pad shortcuts. So let's reopen the pad and see that it's open in Chrome. During class, you want as much space as possible usually, so it's a good idea to close this yellow bar. You don't need to worry about this little message. If you want even more space, you could even zoom out on the web page, and you can do that by holding down the Control key and scrolling backwards on your mouse wheel. And you see how the page gets smaller and smaller. And one thing that's doing is saving me room at the top so that I'm not actually spending so much space on these icons and things on the top. Now, if you feel like the text is too small, you can zoom right back in using the actual percentage zoom control. I could go to 200% or maybe 150%. And now the text is still about the size it was before, but I've got more room to look at it on the pad. During class, we do like you to scroll up and down on the pad so you can see what's going on and even copy if you need to. Now, the pad is taking up a lot of room right now. Probably better to shrink it down. Basically small enough that I could see the full width of a page, but not much more than that. Now the other thing you need during class is to have your programming area. So usually that's going to be processing or Eclipse. So I'm going to go up one level. A couple different ways to do that. I can click back to the apps folder here. I can click up one level, or I can click back. When I do that, I'm back to this main area. I see I have an Eclipse folder, and a processing folder. We'd probably like to get shortcuts to one or both of those depending which class you're in. So I'm going to start with processing, double click the processing folder, see the processing icon, not one of the other things that says processing, but the one that actually has the processing icon. And once you select that, you can just drag that down to the taskbar, or you can use the right-click menu like you saw earlier. And I can do the same thing with Eclipse. I'll go back up one level, I'll click on Eclipse, and I see the Eclipse icon, and I'll drag that down to the taskbar. Now that's pinned there. So I'll click on Processing to open it up, just as an example, and we'll let that open. If you are using Eclipse, you probably want to make sure you open it before class so that it doesn't take too long during class. Don't need to update processing. We can just leave that the version that's already installed. And I'm going to drag this down. And so you see how these windows are overlapping a little bit, but I can still kind of see what I need to see in both windows. If you want, you could reduce the overlap a little bit as well. And of course, you can adjust your zoom levels and other sorts of things to get this set up in a nice way. So yeah, I've got a processing area now for programming. I could open Eclipse as well. One thing I need to do though sometimes is copy from off of the virtual machine area into the virtual machine. And if you notice, I actually have processing open on my computer, not in the virtual machine. Notice how this window is actually on top of the browser window. It's not inside the virtual machine. What if I wanted to copy all this code in here? I just use Control-A and Control-C to copy everything onto my computer's clipboard, but you'll notice when I go back to the virtual machine and try and Control-V to paste, it doesn't actually paste anything. There's nothing to paste. So this is not going to work. There's security restrictions keeping you from copying directly into the virtual machine. Now there's a few ways to get around that. One would be with a website like CollabEdit. And this is a useful tool anyway. So we'll open up collabedit.com and let that open. And you can just create a new document right away. And you can enter your name. I'll enter my name. And you can even choose a programming language in this drop-down, for instance, Java. And I can paste all my code here. Or I can type in code here like void setup. Now, if I open this, you see how the shortcut or the URL for this is very short. This means it'd be very easy to type this in on my home computer. In fact, I could do that in another tab, UTK8C. So I'll go to collabedit.com/UTK8C, and you can see that I will have a copy of the code that I wrote earlier right here. So that's one way to copy things in or out. It's also a good tool for when you're working with somebody else. There's a few other tools you could use. There's a place called Pastebin where you can create something kind of similar to CollabEdit, except you can't edit it after you've pasted everything in there. However, you could make new copies, new pastes is what they call it. You could use the KTByte website. You could actually log into your KTByte account and, for instance, create a new project and paste your code into the project area on the website and then open that up from your home computer as well. You could use a Google document. If you have a Google account, you can make a document and log into it from both places. Although we don't advise you to stay logged into your Google account on the VM simply because it's presumably a private account and you don't want to leave that open on a public machine. Finally, though, there's a built-in feature for copying and pasting into the virtual machine. Now, this has a weird key combination, but it might be the most convenient feature to use for copying and pasting instead of using a second website. And that you can get to that by pressing Ctrl-Alt-Shift. And you see, as soon as I did that, it popped up a clipboard area. So it says that any text that you've copied or cut within Guacamole, Guacamole is the software that's running this virtual machine. Any text you've copied or cut within Guacamole will appear here, or you can actually paste text into this area and it will be applied to the clipboard, meaning the copied buffer in Guacamole. So let's copy this again from my home computer. I will paste it into this clipboard area, and now if I press Ctrl-Alt-Shift again to close this down and I switch back to my area within the virtual machine, I can press Control-V and it pastes everything in. So it did make it to the clipboard through that sort of middle intermediate interface. And I can run my code in my virtual machine and see what happens. So we've got our little bouncing heart demonstration here. So that's working great. Now, what if you want to do that the other way? What if, for instance, I wanted to copy welcome to KT Byte? I can do Control-C here, and then again, I'll do Ctrl-Alt-Shift. And you see that welcome to KT Byte has actually appeared in this space. Now I can copy this again from my home computer, and if I wanted, I could paste this, and I now have that message pasted. So remember that what you see here is automatically in the virtual machine clipboard. And if you want to copy or paste to or from your home computer clipboard, you just do that right in this text area, and it will automatically go to the virtual machine. It takes a little getting used to. It's kind of a two-step process instead of a one-step process, but it does work. Now that's Ctrl-Alt-Shift for a PC or Ctrl-Option-Shift on a Mac. One note about Mac shortcuts, make sure you're really using the Control key when you're in the Windows virtual machine, even if you're on a Mac and you're used to the Command key, because you are sending signals to the Windows install on the virtual machine, and you want to make sure it's really getting the Control key signal, not Command key. So that's something to keep in mind. Finally, one last thing we might want to do is disconnect from the virtual machine. Usually you can just kind of close the tab, make sure you have everything saved, but usually you can just close it and it'll be fine. But for instance, if you're sharing a computer with a family member, for instance, it might actually log you in as the family member instead of yourself, because it's already logged in as them and it's not trying to log in as someone else. So what you can do is go to this Windows Start menu and click on the Power option, and you see it just says Disconnect. So I'll click Disconnect and I'll click Log Out. I could reconnect if I wanted to, but this time I want to click Log Out. And you see I'm back to the regular virtual PC login screen. Now, if I go back to ktbyte.com, I'm still logged in there. And now if I go to ktbyte.com/VM, it will autofill as usual and log me in correctly. So those are some useful shortcuts for setting up and using your virtual machine. So keep those in mind and refer back to this video if you need to. Thanks.